I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is my modded adventure. Oh boy, do I have something special planned today. There's been a mod that's kind of been lingering throughout our journey, and I haven't really touched on it much, as I really feel that this mod sort of is best used towards later game. And that is going to be Forbidden and Arcanus. Or at least that's how I say it. Now, this mod is absolutely beautiful and has changed over the years. I've definitely played around with it, and it has updated and updated and updated. Started off very small and has continued to grow and grow and grow over the last few years. It's been quite interesting, honestly, to see this progression. And that was sort of, I think, the whole intent of the mod was to sort of build on itself over the years and sort of get better and better. And it really has. Now, there is one thing, though, that it is slightly missing. It does exist, but it is very hard to find, and that is its wiki or an in-game documentation. It doesn't really have any in-game documentation as of right now, even though that may be a thing that's in the works. So really it's just reliant on either watching videos or finding the wiki and trying to understand how everything is put together and hoping that everything is documented. So today I'm going to try my best as we get into this mod. I'm going to try my best to sort of set things off and explain how we actually get into this mod and ultimately be able to make items completely unbreakable. Yeah, that's one of the best things I think that this whole mod offers, even though it is not the only feature. There are tons of cool features. Now, I know last episode we went to the Aether and we only took on a couple of bosses, but we will most likely be back to the Aether. There's a couple of cool things that I really want to play with that are still in that dimension and or build in that dimension. Now, I do want to go over this real quick before we dive in, and that's that lightning sword that we end up getting. Oh my gosh, this thing is so cool. It literally strikes lightning, and I think this might actually have a use that we could potentially put together later on down the road, as our quests technically want us to capture a lightning in a jar. And I think this might be a cool way of doing that. Now, with all of that aside, there's a couple of things getting into the Forbidden Arcanus mod that we really need to get into. And I'm going to try my best to pronounce all of these items because some of them are in Latin and I can't, well, I'm not a native Latin speaker, so bear with me there. But this is the basics of sort of getting started. We need to find a couple of ore. You may come across the arcane crystal ore, and then you also may come across runic stone. The runic stone is going to be a little bit harder to find, more like diamond spread out, and maybe even rarer than diamond. But the arcane crystal ore should be fairly common. And we're going to use those materials, specifically the arcane crystals, in order to make this material, which I hope I'm pronouncing right. Mudabitor, or if you're American, you're going to say like mundane, but it's not. Mudabitor or Mundabitor, which apparently means will be changed, which is kind of interesting, which is how this is going to be used. But this requires several different things. Now, phantom membranes, because I normally sleep every night, I don't have a lot of them. So we're probably going to have to dive back into the deeper dark dimension as much as I don't want to because it's so creepy. We're going to need to do that for the phantom membranes. But the arcane crystal dust, which we notice here, that comes from the arcane crystal ore, which we need to find underground. Now I'm back in our cave and I remember seeing some of this material here. You find it within the walls, but right here is some, and I should be able to use our spell on here and be able to pick up the ore. Now this is the deep slate variant, and I believe there's the other variant as well. But what I want to do is use that scry on this. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and place this down and we can augment it and get our scry going. This is going to be fantastic. So let's place this in, place the material, and then augment to make it last longer. And then now we should have the scry for this, and we should be able to find quite a bit of this material. Looks like there's already still some over here. And most likely, silk touching is the best thing to do. That way we can get it back to the base, and then we can go ahead and fortune it. Perfect. So I should, yeah, see it all through the walls. Like, it's just going to be everywhere. This is so nice. It's basically like X-ray. I mean, some would say very OP. I'm going to say this is just perfect. Now, don't forget to make something like this easy. have a backpack with a pickup upgrade, and then have a void upgrade, basically voiding the items that get picked up. So everything should end up going in our backpack, and deep slate will be voided. So you can just go ahead and mine through very fast and very efficiently, finding the ore we need, getting several of them, and moving on to bigger and better things. Now, I do need to mention this. If you did start this pack in the earliest versions, like one of the first few versions, you're going to need to find chunks that haven't been loaded, because you probably won't find this ore strung about if you started in that particular version, like some of the first couple of versions before this mod was added, because it was added a little bit later, a few updates after, once I kind of got things settled in. So even me, in my case, I had to go back basically to where our in portal is, and taking a look at how far out I am. This definitely was loaded after the fact. I didn't really venture too much, but yes, I am finding these ores, and just like that, I think we have quite a few. That's 75. That should be a lot. Now, I know it's not used right away, but since we're already mining, might as well try to find this runic darkstone. And also, we're going to need to mine some darkstone, and darkstone is found pretty low. You'll see right here, this is very low underground. You're going to find it very, very low, like down definitely below the deep slate level, near bedrock. And we're going to need a bunch of the darkstone as well. But is that what I think it is? Like literally right here in the wall? I think it is. This is exactly what I need. This is going to be the runic version. And this is the darkstone. So I can't even break this with my normal spell. So I think I'm going to need an amplify in order to be able to break this. So let's do an amplify, extract silk touch, and then pick up item. There we go. So yes, this is a little bit harder of a material, but now that we have one of them, we can use the scry and be able to find more of them, at least in the future. Because for right now, I don't know how many of these I'm going to need. The rune, by the way, is going to be used for test tubes, which we'll get into later, and also making the runic chiseled version of the dark stone. It looks like also dark runes. These are all things that are going to be definitely used, so we are going to need them, but only in the future. Now I want to place this ore, and up to this point I actually haven't used building gadgets, even though this mod is in here, and there's several new things that I really want to show you guys that this mod has to offer, including the new cut gadget, which I hope we get to use soon. But for right now, I just need to charge this. I think that, can we charge in here? No, I've already forgotten. How do I go about charging? I don't think I can charge in this slot or charge in here. I might actually need another mod in order to charge. Well, there is a player extension to Power, but yeah, I think we can get away with something very easy, and that is a cyclic battery. So if we make a regular cyclic battery, we should be able to technically do this. Let's make a copper nugget, and then a couple of plates. That should work just fine, and then a block of redstone. Nice. And then we should have a pretty powerful battery, and this will get filled up. It should charge directly from our ender cell, and then this actually has a charging slot. So all we need is a little bit of charge in here. Very good. And then by default for me, I have it set to G to open up the menu, but you can just go ahead and once you get that hotkey set, you can open up your menu, and I'm going to select surface and increase my range to like 15. Actually, we're gonna set it to let's set it to 5 for right now. And then I just need to place down my block, select it by shift right clicking, and let's make sure we're on the right mode, surface, and for some reason expanding. Okay, so we need to make sure the fuzzy mode is on. That way I can build up. And by the way, this has been changed. So that way we can change the mode to like change the transition effects. Look at that. So now we can go to all kinds of different versions. Some I like better than others. There's the grow up as well. Yeah, there's all kinds. And then there's even a Thanos snap version, which I think is pretty cool. I still like the grow base, but perfect. So now we have all these in here, and I can go ahead and vein mine this with our Fortune 4 pick now. That I had enough fortune for that. And perfect. And now we should have quite a few of these arcane crystals to work with. So now we have the building gadgets, another awesome tool in our modded arsenal. For now, I'm going to go ahead and take a stack of this, and I kind of want to get this smelted up. So the best way and place to smelt this up is still Ender IO, as it's so fast, 3 items at a time. Oh, just super quick. Also a great way to sort of get rid of your armor as well. If you have like extra armor building up, just toss it over here. You're going to get some nuggets. But it's also going to just completely get rid of all those pesky items that you don't really need. There we go. So we have a little bit of this dust built up. And like I said, now I've got to, well, farm the only thing I don't have a lot of, and that's phantom membranes. And, well, there's only one really awesome place to get that, and that's the deeper dark. And it's horrifying. Before going in here, though, I will take some tips that you guys mentioned, and you were like, you can place wool, Chosen, and it doesn't actually, like, cause any sounds. And I was blown away by that, because I didn't know that. You would think that I play Minecraft enough that I would know these little things. But, well, the deeper dark, and not really the deeper dark, but the ancient city sort of stuff, that is actually still fairly new to me, and I didn't really get to experience too much of it, as modded really does change a lot of those aspects. You usually end up skipping those things, but it's going to be kind of cool that you can walk around on wool. You can place wool, and it doesn't even make the sounds. It doesn't mess with the shulkers. Or not the shulkers, yeah, it doesn't mess with the shulkers or the shriekers. So let's try this. Into the portal we go again. And here we are. Let's go ahead and now try this out. So we make a lot of noise, but if we're on wool, we don't, right? Oh, that made noise because I didn't place it, but yeah, apparently placing wool and jumping around, it doesn't seem like our bounce really causes any sound. Oh no, the bounce definitely causes sound. But we need to get an area for the shrieker. That's going to be the fun thing. Oh, placing that makes sounds. Okay, phantoms. I need you, and apparently I can also break these from a distance. It's going to be something that I need to do. Let's set up projectile. And then amplifies fine. Nice. Okay. So yeah, just so long as there's none of those things around, we should be good. And hopefully we can attack some phantoms here and get quite a few loot drops from them. You know, the best thing to do would be capture one in a yoinker and then put it into our mob farm. That actually might be a good idea. Mob yoinker, here we go. Let's see if I can get some of these phantoms to teleport over here. There we go. Nice. All right, I grabbed one. And now we can just skedaddle our way out of here before we encounter anything worse. Eventually we will explore this a bit more, but for right now, it's definitely not the time. So up to our containment area, let's drop this guy, and into the jar it goes. Wow, that is so quick. This blows me away every time I see that. And you know, since we ended up removing the functionality of some of the bosses, we could probably go ahead and get rid of them from being in here. We don't really need some of these containment jars with these bosses in here. So let's go ahead and take them. The dragon's a little bit different because we can still use bottles on it. So I kind of want to keep those. But yeah, let's go ahead and replace that with a phantom because this is definitely farmable. And nice. So now we should get some phantom membrane since it is going to be pretty useful. Normal vanilla, not super useful, as the only use is really what? Making slowness potions? Yeah, and repairing your elytra. Technically. Now, up until this point, all of the stuff that we have just worked on is going to lead us ultimately into a forge. Now, to make the forge, the reason why we worked on all of these things was to make the Diorum ingot. I'm definitely not pronouncing that 100% correctly. It is Latin, and it does translate to of the gods, which is pretty cool. This right here is used in the crafting of the arcane darkstone. And then the arcane darkstone has a few different recipes and everything. And this ultimately is going to lead us into crafting the Hephaestus Forge. And it's not quite easy to understand how you do this without checking out their wiki and understanding how do you even make the Hephaestus Forge? Well, there's actually a very particular layout that we need to set up that is not quite shown here, but we do need to set up a very specific layout. And I think I know exactly the place for that. So we have this whole area here, but no longer are we using the rats to quarry anymore. So I'm thinking since this is a perfect 9x9, and basically the structure is going to be a 9x9 that we need to build in the multi-block, well, we should put it right here, and it's going to fit perfectly. So for this process, let's go ahead and go over the items that we're going to need. We're going to need 48 polished darkstone for this, 9 arcane chiseled polished darkstone, and then we're going to need 4 chiseled arcane polished darkstone. Yeah, it's a lot to sort of get into this, and if we remember, most of this stuff can be obtained via the stone cutter. So after using a stone cutter to get most of these items, except for the polish, which the polish is just simply by doing this, we should have just about everything, and I think this also needs to be turned into this, and this is how we actually get the arcane version. So 9 of those will equal this, and then to get the chiseled, it's a little bit more tedious. I am going to need another set. I think 6 will be enough for this. And then we just make slabs out of that. Or can we make slabs out of this? It does appear that we can. These are arcane polished. Looks like maybe it has to go right in the middle. Oh no, these are different arcane stones. Ah, okay. So, oh, this is the arcane version. Okay, so I made too many of these. That's okay. We can use them for decoration. So yeah, that means I'm going to need more of this. Oh boy, when you overcraft or miscraft things that are kind of expensive. Yes, 3 of these should be enough, I hope. Probably not though. That produces 8. Oh yeah, that's gonna be plenty. Okay, and then 2 of these, that will give us the 4 of these that we need. Okay, perfect. So that should be all of the building materials. Actually, more than enough building materials. We're also gonna need a smithing table. And this is how we're going to essentially make our first forge. So let's go ahead and build this structure out. So let's go ahead and start right here on what is essentially going to be the forge. And this is going to have 3 blocks on the face, and we're basically building this sort of 9x9-ish circle. So we have 3 blocks here, and then 1, 2, 3 blocks on the side. And then we're going to add the 3 blocks on the side again. And then we're going to rinse and repeat through this entire thing. So we're essentially going to have these like little hook areas. Then this area out, which is going to be basically lined out, is going to be a 7x7 on the interior, with this outer edge being the 9x9. And so that means the whole outer edge here should basically wrap around this center hole that I have already built, making it quite easy to build out the basic structure for this. And this right here is going to be the outer edge. Now on all of the corners, we're going to want to place those arcane chisel polished darkstone in all of the corners here, just like that. And then we should still have 1 left over, and it's essentially going to go into the middle. So let's go ahead and get the middle filled out. On the outer edges, we're going to have this new chiseled arcane polished dripstone block. That's a lot to say. Basically, this goes in the middle, and then we surround that with these blocks here. So remember, it's really only being built out of like 3 different blocks. And then we just fill the rest of it in, just like so. And this is essentially going to be the basis of our little arcane structure. Not too bad. Now, the last thing that we are going to need is we are going to need some of this dust. And let's go ahead and grab some of that real quick. We'll make 1. And then we're going to need a smithing table. We place the smithing table down in the middle, and then we should be able to shift right click this if all is done correctly. And it should convert into a Hephaestus forge. And now we really get to begin the arcanes. Now, inside this menu can be quite confusing. Believe me, there's a lot of stuff going on, and we have some slots that are locked until we have a higher tier forge. And then there's some things here that are mentioned, and it's like, how do you get some of these things? Well, we need experience. These require specific experience orbs or bottles. And then we have blood, which we can obtain via a vial and a knife, or there's killing mobs directly near this, which is another way to do it. And then we have souls, which is a whole other thing we're going to get into here in a moment. And then Ariel, which is basically this arcane crystal dust, but turned into a bottle. But there are passive ways of generating it as well. Speaking of that Ariel, I hope you saved up some of these arcane crystals, because you are going to need a couple of them. For right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get 4 of these, and I'm going to place and make ourselves an obelisk that should passively generate this over a little bit of time. So we need arcane dripstone. If you remember, that's the one that requires the durium. And then we're going to place 2 on top, and then same over here. I should be able to place 2 on top, and then we're going to do just like we did over here. We're going to use this Munda dust, and I'm probably gonna have to craft a little bit of this, but you just shift right click on this as well, and that creates the obelisk. And now over time we should start to generate this in at least this one section here. You see it's going up, so that is basically done. Now the souls are a little bit different, and that's going to require a soul extractor. Now the one requirement of the soul extractor is the elderwood planks. So the elderwood planks, you are going to need to go to a dark forest in order to find them, because this is how we're going to obtain this jar, and it is required for this. So inside of this dark forest, this is the stuff that you're looking for. And so let's use the break spell on it, and we should get some carved logs and also the regular logs, and potentially some sticks from it as well, if we've done it correctly. And yeah, look at the little face on that thing. It's hilarious. This can also be used to make some buckets that actually have a little bit larger storage than a regular bucket, where it can hold more than one fluid. It can also pick up fish and all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, we're going to want to gather a little bit of these. By the way, these essentially work like logs, and yeah, they get turned into planks just like anything else. Now, back to the soul extractor. And this thing right here is kind of cool and has evolved over the years that I have noticed. And all we need is to grab some soul sand, and we are actually going to be able to convert this soul sand into some souls. Or if you've noticed souls around, that will also work. But if we use this, notice it spits out a little soul. And this little fella right here is one of those lost souls. And when I place it back, it goes right back in and converts this to soul sand. So yes, just something a little interesting that you can do. Now, right clicking on the ground doesn't do anything, but getting it into here, we should be able to put it into this slot. And now we have 1 soul that has built up. But of course, like I've said, finding souls throughout the world or killing a mob has a potential for a darker soul to spawn, and they all have their different values associated with them. Yeah, you should be able to find those and also extract the souls from the world. It's funny that you get soul-less sand out of that process, but yes, I think the best place to farm this as well, the soul sand valleys in the nether. Now, remember that blood section that we needed to work on? Well, there's a couple of ways we can go about doing this, and one of them is a bit more tedious than the other. But if we have some way of getting mobs to spawn over here or to kill mobs over here, then that will effectively end up raising the blood vial section here. Now, there's no way for us to sort of donate our own blood, but we could use test tubes. So test tubes require that rune that I was talking about earlier that we now need to go hunt for. And then to be able to fill that test tube, we need to kill mobs with this mystical dagger. This is used for a lot of other things, including how we get dragon skulls for some armor and stuff like that. But essentially, we need to make this thing, and dark matter, by the way, comes from the Edelwood log, and that gets smelted up. And dark runes, they just need this, which is not too bad. Obsidian ingots. I've actually, it's not too bad to make. You just kind of have to smelt them. So putting this together just requires us to basically farm up a few of those runes. Now, using the scrying, these things are not going to be super common. Like I said, they are pretty rare. So you're not going to stumble upon them all that much. You can see how separated these things are. But yes, they do exist, as you see right here. So I'm going to just try my best to start farming all of them. Yep. So if you're farming for just a little bit, I have about 11 of them. Not a whole lot, as you know, you have to kind of mine for quite a while to get several of these, because even the fortune doesn't really seem to give you more. So you are kind of just stuck. It's like 1-to-1, very specific. So I just need to make a little bit of this, and the ender pearl fragment should come from endermans. And let's see. All we have to do, let's see, smelt one of these, and we will have ourselves a dagger that we'll probably want to enchant, because I don't think it's going to be very nice on us if we don't. It's going to be a pretty lengthy process if we don't add some sort of enchant, because it only does 4 damage and doesn't have a lot of durability as well, which later on that will be addressed, because that's one of the best things in the entire mod, right? Is making an eternal stella, which by default can repair, but it can also make an item unbreakable. And that goes for a lot of items in the pack. So I also hope that this test tube, by the way, is reusable, considering it does require a rune. So being able to keep that on us hopefully will be nice. And I think that's about it. I think we should go to the probably go to the Soul Sand Valley, so that way we can use the extractor, gather some souls, and also use this dagger after I enchant it. This is going to use up all of my levels, but I'm putting looting to mending, which is going to make this perfect. Basically, it is almost required with this low of durability. And yeah, it's going to have some sharpness and basically some smite. And this should be a pretty decent sword. This took it from a 4 to a basically base diamond sword, which will get the job done. So right here's a little bit of a Soul Sand Valley. Let's actually go ahead and try to take this guy on and see if we get any blood in our vial from that. And you see we got 516 in that vial. So yes, this is how you get the blood. And there's still though one extra thing left that we didn't actually do. And that is going to be the way that we get experience bottles. So with our vials in hand, we're almost there. We should be able to put the vial in here, and it drains from the test tube, and it does look like we can potentially keep the test tube now that it's draining out of there. That is so gross at the same time thinking about this. Very thick liquid, most likely. All right, so yes, we do get to keep our vials, and I think having 2 vials is great. That makes farming a little bit easier. But getting experience, that's another little thing that I can talk about. So within the mod itself, within the Forbidden Arcanus, we can go ahead and take a look at some ore. There is an ore that will end up dropping this experience. And it's an experience ore, just like all the other ores that we found. And it has this interesting texture you can see right here. And then there's also the Stella, which be careful breaking it. We're going to get into that potentially later. But Stella is going to be one of the items that we're going to need as well for crafting. But XP, you can get it this way and feed that way, or you can do experience bottles, which we can get from villagers. It's not going to be a pretty good way of getting it is through a villager, or you can actually get it from these mods as well. And believe me, there are so many ways of getting XP bottles. Now, the solidifier might be one of the most obtainable methods of doing it, as we already have a solidifier set up and we just need to give it bottles. So let's grab a few bottles. Let's see, we're probably going to need to make more than this. So perfect, a stack of bottles, and then let's grab a bucket, and we should be able to bucket some experience. Let's do a couple of buckets of it. And since we already have a solidifier from Cyclic, this might be one of the easiest ways of doing this. All of that experience is built up, and let's see, we're going to also need to dump the liquid out of here. I think the best way to do that, honestly, is to just break it. So let's make sure our break spell is set up properly. Nice, and now we have that broken. It shouldn't have anything in it now, and so we've cleared it. Perfect. So let's go ahead and put some bottles in here, and then we should be able to just fill this with experience. And that is going to, given enough time, going to produce some bottles. I'm going to go ahead and let that set, and that should start producing those. And while I have that working, I'm going to go ahead and get a villager set up. So after a little bit of trading with a cleric, we now have also another way that we can buy bottles. All of this is going to make it a little bit easier to get more experience. Let's also check in on this. This has probably got a couple of bottles as well. Nice. Out of those few buckets. And so, yeah, this is how you get some more experience. And that is going to need to go in this slot here and is going to build that experience bar. After all of this is done, we should now have the ability to upgrade our forge, at least to the next tier. So taking a look at the forge itself, we're going to need some spawner scraps, which by the way, you should get these when you break mob spawners. And then we're going to need the Elderwood plank and then some arcane crystals. And then we need at least these amounts inside of all of those slots. Hopefully this all is understandable. So after demolishing some spawners, I now have enough spawner scrap and everything should be ready to go. I think I have everything but the souls placed in here, but I already farmed those. I even ended up finding a corrupted soul, which are the same color, but you farm them in the world. So basically going to do damage to them. And whenever you do all the full damage with the soul extractor, it'll drop it. Now I think this gives the same value though. It's only 1, right? Yeah, it only gives you a soul value of 1. I'm going to put those in there, and you see that soul value goes up very quickly. This was just from farming soul sand in the nether. Now, over here, it's not exactly clear what we're going to be sort of doing. Now, I sort of fibbed to you earlier when I said the entire forge was complete, because it is still missing a couple of things to make it functional. And that is going to be the fact that we need darkstone pedestals in order to craft our items. So we have our souls, we have everything built up in here, ready to go, but how do we actually put the items in? That's where these pedestals come into play, and they are going to go right on top of these markers. And you're going to notice that, well, we only have enough room for 6. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Because it does appear to be able to take to the next forge, we are going to need, it looks like 8 slots, right? Well, that's where we actually just break these for right now. Because they have built up, we can now break them, and we need to replace them. Thankfully, they drop into items, so we don't have to rebuild them. But we can now get everything on here. So long as this is filled, we should be good. Should be ready to rock and roll. And so I have all of the items ready. I broke some spawners, so I had enough spawner shards. And let's go ahead and place all of the spawner shards down, all 4 of them, and then all of the arcane crystals. And with all of that down, we have one thing left to do, and that is to place the final item here. And this should, once we, I believe, upgrade, I think we have to shift right click this on here, right? Once we have everything, shift right click. I could be wrong. I am definitely wrong. I think I figured it out. It is going to require this, which the clay, and we need to make ourselves a hammer. This only has 1 use on it, but you can get higher uses. And I think this will work now. There we go. We just right click it on there, and that starts the ritual process. Okay, so a little bit simpler than I thought. And that should just progress our forge to the next level, ultimately allowing us to have more storage of those materials inside of it. Oh, wow. It does take a little bit of time, doesn't it? It should be... Oh, that's cool. That is pretty neat. This is now upgraded and is now a tier 2. And it should be able to store more of the materials, like I said. Now, I am going to go ahead and re-break these. Well, putting that in the wrong hand, didn't I? But yes, I am going to need to break these pedestals. And I'm basically going to be putting the pedestal, putting these arcane crystals back on here so it can refill for right now. I think that works out just fine for this whole process. But yeah, this mod is so cool so far, and we're getting pretty close to being able to make, like I said, an Eternal Stela, which I think needs up to tier 3 of this altar, and we've only gotten it up to tier 2. So I think for today, that will have to be the stopping point. There's more to do in this mod, and we're going to be continuing this next episode, and we should go on the hunt for Stellarite very, very soon, and hopefully get ourselves the ability to produce unbreakable things, which is going to be very nice, because we should be able to make like unbreakable potion effects and all kinds of cool stuff that will last us forever, which just becomes very overpowered. I know, it's just the fun of modded Minecraft. But guys, if you did enjoy today's episode and you learned something new, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. I hope to see you guys in the next one, and it's now time to thank the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go to Inspired Goliath. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord, becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible. And guys, of course, join the Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect. You can find the link down in the description below for an easy way to get to it as well. Also, if you download the mod pack, it's listed right on the front of the mod pack. And as of the time of this recording, be sure to check out, there is a new version of this mod pack. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I will mention it next episode. There is a version of this pack that is a skyblock that you should check out, and it's over on my second channel, Chosen Live. So that is going to be in the works along with this one. Lots of developments happening. I'm trying my best to push out updates as soon as possible for this. So if you do enjoy and you appreciate all the work, the best thing you can do is join that Discord. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching. Bye.